done so much to promote the field of heroism in school and community settings, and personally as well committing myself to inspiring to continue my research. So it's a great privilege to have Matt here, who's going to talk to us about the making of a hero, cultivating empathy, altruism, and the heroic imagination.
Candy in front of me here. Firstly, thanks Olivia for scheduling me after Sylvia. Much appreciated. Fantastic. On average, every week in New York City, 2 to 3 people die from being hit by subway trains, and most of them are accidental. There's certainly some suicides, but most of them someone falling onto the tracks. It's quite a difficult task to get out of a subway track. The platform's usually about so high, and it's not something a lot of people can do, and it's a long fall, so a lot of them are incapacitated. The interesting thing about these deaths is there's almost always other people on the platform when they happen. Every so often, one person will jump onto the tracks and rescue someone. This happens a few times, or a dozen times a year usually. The interesting thing is that almost everyone assumes in a situation like that, or when someone is having a heart attack, or someone is being attacked in front of them, that they would do the heroic thing, that they would step in, absolutely no question, I would. But the reality is, most people don't. This isn't conjecture, this is real life. We see this all the time. There are bystanders in all of these incidents, and we think, what is preventing them? So there are a whole lot of factors there, obviously, but and they've been studied for 4 decades since Kitty Genovese kind of sparked the bystander research. What a couple of associates of mine and I are interested in is what causes those people to help. Who are those heroes and why are they doing what they're doing? So Brian and another colleague of mine, Ari Cohen, from the University of Nebraska, put together a paper of what 4 commonalities we think are in these heroes' pasts that make them the ones that are acting while dozens of others don't. So everyone's kind of enjoying defining heroism today, so I'm not really going to get too much into a definition, but I am going to say that this is considering risk for sure, and it's absolutely not just physical risk. Probably going to talk quite a bit about physical risk examples today, but also one of the most studied groups of heroes are the rescuers of the Holocaust, who did these sorts of things over long periods of time. So we're considering heroes that act in an instant, like jumping onto a subway track, but also people who have made these decisions day after day after day after day to keep taking the risk. So the first thing that we consider as a commonality is empathy. And I think someone earlier today referenced Rorty. He suggests that our action for others, and beginning before that, our empathy for others is linked to a sense of someone like us. And someone like us is someone who belongs to a subset smaller than the entire world. So it could be an Australian, it could be a West Australian, it could be someone of my race, someone who looks like me, it could be someone on my tennis team. There's a smaller subset. So the people, we feel empathy and we're more likely to act for those people who are like us. We saw this in interviews with rescuers and also bystanders during World War II. As I said, these people have been documented quite a bit. One of the things that was interesting about the comparisons was that people who helped the Jews often had a history of persecution. So that was the commonality that they saw with the people that they were helping. And it was more likely that was the connection than it was that they knew someone who was Jewish. So just being part of the community wasn't as strong a connection as having that shared experience. Roddy also suggested that it wasn't that the rescuers looked at this person as a human being and I'm a human being so I'm going to help this human being. It was that they were someone from my town or someone from my bocce team. There was a different connection there. It wasn't simply out of, well, this is another person. Our hope in all of these 4 sections is that we can teach this stuff. So certainly there's evidence that we can expand our circles of empathy and we can expand our sense of belonging to groups. We can make the groups bigger, we can have more groups. So that would be number 1. Number 2 is the heroic imagination. And we've heard that a few times this weekend too, except it's not a weekend. So Phil Zimbardo and Zeno Franco, I think, coined that term. Certainly they think they coined it 10 years or so ago. But I know that if I called each of them right now that they would be annoyed that I woke them up, but also they would not be able to tell me a definition immediately, and they would not agree. They didn't put a whole lot of thought into that term. So for us, we're talking about the habit or getting into the habit of imagining yourself in a heroic situation. And that can come from a number of sources. It can be observing heroes, reading about heroes and thinking, well, what would I have done in their situation? It can be just imagining yourself doing heroic things. All of this stuff builds up your likelihood to take the heroic